Real quick before we get started, I'd like to congratulate at James Tay15 for winning our latest drawing. If you'd like to learn how to enter one of our drawings, check us out on our Twitter page at Simpsons Sibs. That's Simpsons SIBS.
Do you think it would be fun to start a podcast just like us? Buzzsprout offers all the tools you need to launch, promote, and track your podcast and get it listed in all the big directories. Get started today at buzz.simpsonsiblings.com and receive a $20 Amazon gift card after signing up for one of their paid packages. That's buzz.simpsonsiblings.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Sari.
And I'm Sean.
And we're the Simpsons siblings. We've been watching Simpsons since we were kids.
And we talk about it every day.
Yup. And today we're going to be talking about A Fish Called Selma, Season 7, Episode 19. Originally aired March 24th, 1996. Directed by Mark Kirkland. Written by Jack Barth. And our guest stars are Phil Hartman as Troy McClure and plot twist, Fat Tony. He voiced Fat Tony in this one, which is kind of weird. And Jeff Goldblum as MacArthur Parker, which is interesting because, okay, stick with me here. So he's named MacArthur Parker, which is kind of a take on the song MacArthur's Park, which Weird Al did a version of MacArthur's Park that was Jurassic Park, which starred who? Jeff Goldblum.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's an Illuminati scheme somehow.
But yeah, the opening of this episode, we didn't have the chalkboard scene, but we did have the couch gag where they all came walking in as wind-up toys. And I think it was Marge had sparks flying out of her mouth, and then they all just end up falling over on the floor.
Classic. So. Yep. So here it is, Troy McClure's highlight episode. This is an interesting one, and this is a lead-in to our next episode, which will be a highlight just on Troy McClure as a character, so watch out for that one. So we start out with the family watching TV. It's The Muppets Go Medieval.
And they're watching it on Movie for a Rained-Out Ball Game.
Yep.
Which that guy looked so sad.
Oh, poor guy. This is also very much a 90s... late 80s and early 90s callback because there were so many Muppets movies where it was just, let's put the Muppets in this situation. You know, like Muppet Christmas Carol or Muppet Treasure Island. It's like this movie plus Muppets.
And then Lisa asked the very important question, what's a Muppet?
I love Homer's response.
Not quite a mop, not quite a puppet. So the answer, I don't know.
Oh, but his delivery is perfect on that line. And we have Troy sort of fawning over Miss Piggy's love, and it's just ridiculous.
And then I love how that scene ends up coming back later, too.
Oh, yeah, we'll mention that when it comes back later. Then we cut to Troy driving a DeLorean.
Mm-hmm.
He gets pulled over by Chief Wiggum, who doesn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, he does not remember him from such roles as everything. And I love Wiggum's line, I'm still going to have to ask for a bribe.
Now, was it the scene before when they're watching TV when they set up the thing with him and the fish?
Oh, yeah, I think Marge mentions it.
Yeah, because I think she said people don't do that kind of thing with a fish because of that weird rumor.
Yeah, which I'm going to get more into that later. That is such a weird concept, even for a Simpsons episode.
Yeah.
Did they just sort of pick a random animal for him to be, like, attracted to? And it's just so weird.
I only bring that up because as he drives away from Chief Wiggum, the bumper sticker says, "Follow me to Springfield Aquarium."
Yep. And it's weird, too, because you would kind of suspect a Simpsons episode to almost make that a mystery until the end. And you're like, ooh, what was it that he did that was so bad or so weird? But they just throw it out right there from the beginning that, oh, he's attracted to fish.
Which, A, is... I don't even want to know if that's a real thing.
Let's not look that up.
Yeah,
Let's not go into the Google.
I don't want that in my
pit.
Google history.
Yeah, you don't want that in your Google history.
But then also it just sets up for some very subtle jokes down the line, too.
Yeah.
But then it gives you that uneasy reminder that it's a thing in this episode.
Yeah, and I feel like they might have originally written this for him to be gay and for Selma to kind of be the cover for that, but then they decided not to go that route. So they're like, let's have it be an animal. What should we do? And then they just landed on fish somehow. And I'd love to know the logic behind all that.
Yeah, there's got to be a story that only a few people know.
Oh man, it's just such a weird concept. Here we have, right from the get-go, Troy McClure attracted to fish.
And Troy's glasses, too.
Oh yeah, they make him look completely different. And this was also back when glasses were considered unattractive, because nobody finds that nerdy anymore. People just wear glasses to look cool.
I think it might be, too, because I'd have to look at numbers, but maybe because we all stare at screens all day, more people are wearing glasses.
I wonder if that's it. Yeah. Yeah, we're already going on a tangent.
Wouldn't be a podcast without one.
Yeah. So Troy goes down to the DMV after needing corrective lenses. He's got to retake his eye exam. And we've got Grandpa's whole little scene here.
Hello, Marge.
Hello, Marge. Which is interesting because those are two characters, or three characters, I guess, that don't really interact very much, is Grandpa with Patty and Selma. I'm trying to think of any other interactions between them. Which
It's later seasons.
I know it's happened, but it's not notable really.
Yeah.
And the whole, I came here to get this revoked. Like, what?
Why not just not drive?
Yeah. And then McClure kind of gives Selma a bribe, saying that he'll take her to dinner if she passes his test for him.
Yeah, it's just funny seeing how like she reacts to him as a celebrity and how there's that kind of sister rivalry going on right from the start and that whole jealousy, and it's just kind of chance how it landed.
Yeah.
But one thing that it's just a small detail, but we don't really see very many of the characters' autographs or like handwriting.
Oh, yeah.
But we get to see on that form, we get to see Troy McClure's full signature.
Yeah. I think I also noticed an SB. That was probably Selma Bouvier.
Yeah, she was marking
initials.
the form. I saw that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting to point out. We don't usually see that very often. So McClure ends up taking her to the Pimento, and for some reason I actually had to pause this because I thought it was so weird. If you look at that sign, there's just a giant arrow pointing at the Pimento in the olive.
They put so much emphasis on that for no reason.
It's like, what it's obnoxious and random, and I don't know why, but I love it.
It would be similar to like a restaurant called like Pig's Tail, and there's a pig with a giant arrow pointing at the tail.
Like that's what
no reason.
In case you didn't know what a pig's tail was, it's that part right there. Yeah. I actually paused and looked at all of the celebrity pictures. Most of them are celebrities that have had guest star roles in the past. So we have Leonard Nimoy, Bette Midler. Oh no, Bette Midler. Tito Puente. Tito. Adam West. Conan O'Brien, who is obviously also a writer. Barry White. James Woods. And the one that I don't think has been a guest star so far is Tom Cruise. I think it was supposed to be Tom Cruise. He looked kind of like him if he was a Simpsons character. And then a bunch that I couldn't really tell who they were supposed to be. But those are the ones I recognized.
That's a lot of detail. I can't believe I didn't notice that.
And that they probably dug up some old drawings that they had made of these characters from those previous episodes. Because it did, like, Leonard Nimoy looked like how he did in the monorail episode and all that. So they have dinner, and Troy kisses Selma after he sees he's getting attention from the paparazzi. And that's sort of where the whole beginning of this episode kind of formulates.
And I appreciate the little joke where he says, a little something for page 1. Mm-hmm. He ends up being in the Springfield Shopper on page 10.
I didn't notice that.
Above an article of Rainier Wolfcastle, it says, look who's drunk.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, I saw the drunk. I didn't see the Springfield Shopper thing. That's pretty good.
And not even the front page of Springfield Shopper.
Oh,
Way
yeah.
back on page 10.
Page 10. And then I find it interesting that Lenny somehow recognizes Selma, despite, I don't think they've ever met.
Yeah, there's just some odd combinations of characters that you never think of them interacting.
Yeah, and like Lenny just going, hey, Homer, isn't this your sister-in-law? Like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
And also another gag, it happened so fast, and it's not even really completely a gag, it's just sort of silly, is Troy is repairing his beanbag, and he has a book that says beanbag furniture repair.
How did I miss that?
It happens really fast, and I had to rewind it and pause it. But he's sewing up his beanbag, and it just says beanbag, which all you would really need to do is just sew it. I don't know why you need a book that says beanbag furniture repair, which is the whole concept of it being silly. And I wrote down, so I didn't look up the guest stars until afterwards, and I actually wrote here, Jeff Goldblum is in this episode. How did I not remember?
With all the times I've seen this over the years, I think just in the past, I thought, oh, that's a familiar voice, but didn't think about it much. But now, like right away, I thought, that's Jeff Goldblum. How did I not know?
500% Jeff Goldblum.
It was very unexpected.
Yeah, me too.
Which, for how many times we've seen this, we should have known.
You know, thinking back, I don't think they replayed this one very much when we were kids. Because you remember there was like a set of episodes that they always reran.
Yeah.
Because we usually watched them WB61 at about, was it like 10 p.m. because it was after Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, I think
Star
so.
Trek was from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m.
But
and
they
then
always had 2 episodes of The Simpsons.
2 episodes, 2 reruns, and there were certain ones they didn't show very often. I think this was one they didn't show very often. So there it is. All right, and the interesting thing is too is he doesn't do a whole lot in this episode either. Like you have Jeff Goldblum, and you're just gonna have him be an agent.
That's on 1-2 scenes, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. Which might be another reason why we didn't really remember, but it's just interesting. And then we have Troy McClure calling Selma back after being told that it was good PR, and he says, "You might remember me from such dates as last night."
So classy.
Oh, yeah.
Brings us to the second date.
Yep, here we go. I love how Troy is so positive but so dim-witted at the same time, which just goes so well with his character. Because before this, all we knew him from were those little snippets that we got. They really had him developed here as all the different parts of his personality building on top of that. So Selma gets kicked out for smoking in the restaurant, and Troy sort of follows her.
Which that line, I ordered a Zima, not emphysema.
Oh my God.
Which is a very outdated thing to say.
Yes. And it's also kind of outdated because at least here you can't smoke in restaurants at all.
Yeah.
It's just sort of known.
It was more that people were upset that it was happening, not that it's like against the rules, against the law.
Yeah, which like now you'd be like, well, of course you can't smoke in a restaurant. But back then you had the option. I remember being seated as a kid and having someone ask my parents, do you want smoking or not smoking?
But that also brings it to a weird middle ground where it was kind of that transition where people weren't, smoking is being phased out in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these days, I mean, technically this series was kind of aimed at kids, sort of.
Yeah.
There's laws now about showing smoking in cartoons.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so we're in this spot where it's taboo but not against the law to smoke in a restaurant, and you're smoking in a cartoon.
Yeah,
So
it's a weird intersection of things. All right, and then we have Troy and Selma going to the drive-in together.
Which they're showing the movie.
Yeah, of course they are.
But did you see the sign, too, what's showing the next day?
Aren't they closing it down?
Closed for demolition.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Which made me think, too, was this when they kind of started to close those down?
Yeah.
Was that when
I miss drive-ins.
Yeah, it's weird because I have like 2 sort of faded memories of going to drive-ins, but they're not very clear.
There was like one in town here that's, I think, now closed that we would go to once in a while. And
yeah,
it was kind of run down and stuff, but it was still just fun.
Yeah, it's just kind of a unique experience. But we have him quoting the Muppet movie while they're watching it to Selma as he's proposing to her. It's just...
And he even asks if she will give him her dainty hoof in marriage.
And Selma just takes it. She doesn't even blink twice at it.
She's starstruck. She's like, of course.
Of course. Oh my goodness.
You know, that's how you wrap up a second date.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's how you do it. And somebody, I can't remember if it was Marge, but I have it written down that someone said that he was a 70s leading man. Like from the 1970s. So how old would that make him now?
That's math.
That's math. We're not allowed to do math on the weekends. My brain just doesn't calculate it. So that would be, if he was 20 when he was the leading man in the 70s, he would be, dear
70?
God, yeah, he'd be like 71.
Yeah.
Troy McClure's getting up there. I just love the voice Troy uses when he introduces her to the rooms in the house. He sounds like he's in a commercial for his own house.
Like, that's just his natural state.
That's just, and that's sort of the interesting, because this episode really sort of peeled back the curtain on him, because we've only seen him in those short films before. This shows us this is who he really is, but he's the same guy.
Yeah, and that's what people hire him for, is that voice, that tone.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Planet of the Apes. I pretty much got this whole thing memorized because it's so perfect. It's just the Dr. Zaius theme, the piano sequence, Bart and Homer's comments.
We have his agent presenting it to him, saying, "Oh, you're starring as the human. It's the role I was born to play."
Well, he was born as a human. Oh, man.
There's so much in this scene.
There's so much. I actually read an interview about what happened in the writing room when they were writing this scene. And they said most of the time when they're writing scenes for The Simpsons, there's a lot of going through different versions of it and sort of cutting things out, adding things, fixing it to make it better. But they said this scene pretty much was born as this scene, that they came up with it and it was just all perfect and it all just fell into place. And my favorite line of this whole thing is the very end when he looks up at Dr. Zaius and says, "I love you, Dr. Zaius."
Just like the original movie.
Because A, it makes no sense. B, it's so overacted that it's just wonderful. And that's the way so many musicals end, is like you go through this whole big score and then the main character says something really profound, proclaiming something, and then the curtains close. And it's just so typical of musicals.
The only way I can describe how he says that is it's both full of emotion and devoid of emotion at the same time. Like
that is a great way to put it.
Like it's just weird. And
yeah.
Hartman did a great job voicing.
Oh, it was, and the funny thing is too is that he didn't understand the context of that line at the time. He said, "You want me to say what? Why is he going to say that?" But that's part of what makes it such a great line, is that it makes no sense. There's no build up to it. There's no reason he should love him. What the heck?
It's just the whole play. Like it opens to them saying Dr. Zaius 9 times in a row. Like. What kind of a play is this?
But everything about this sequence, like I could do a whole episode of the podcast just on this sequence.
I know. We can talk about everything from chimpanzee to chimpanzee.
Yes. You'll never make a monkey out of me.
And this is where the podcast degrades to just quotes.
Oh yeah, just quotes. That's it. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. And the other great thing about this sequence is, especially seeing this as a kid, I didn't know anything about Planet of the Apes as a kid. I mean, now I've seen the original and I saw like a couple of the remakes, but as a kid, I didn't have any context for this, but it was still hilarious.
And that's the thing, is it's accessible to anybody, because you're either laughing at it because it's just silly or because it has nothing to do with the movie.
And that's something that so I sat down and I watched that entire 6-hour-long ranking every Simpsons episode video that's on YouTube.
That's on my to-do list.
I watched it in 12 half-hour segments. But you know what? I should pull up his name because I feel bad not giving a name.
Oh, yeah. Gotta give credit.
Gotta give credit. So it was L.S. Mark's 6-hour-long Simpsons ranking every Simpsons episode video. And something I noticed was, especially when he goes through the Halloween episodes that are spoofs, that the later ones, it doesn't make sense and isn't funny unless you've seen what it's spoofing. But the original ones, it doesn't matter what they're spoofing. It's still funny. Like the Shining segment is one of my favorite Halloween spoofs that they've done. And I've only seen The Shining once.
I think you mean The Shining.
Oh, yeah, I mean The Shining. Sorry, I don't want to get sued. but I feel like that's kind of the equivalent here, that they're spoofing Planet of the Apes, but it's okay if you haven't seen Planet of the Apes. It's still going to be freaking hilarious. And that's sort of what sets some of these episodes apart, I think.
I just wonder, like, is that intentional or did it just happen to be that way?
I don't know, but it is something that changed stylistically through the times. And all right, and then we have this whole little scene where Troy and Homer are drunk, and Troy reveals the secret. And when he tells the secret, it's just sort of.
I didn't quite know what to call that. I wrote it down as classic Simpsons whispering. There's been other times throughout the show, I can't remember off the top of my head, where they lean in, they go, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Like very like over the top vocalizations.
Oh my god, that's great. Yeah, that's very much so. I would love to see what that looked like, the actors' faces while they're doing that sound, or all the different takes if there's some that are more ridiculous.
And then I wrote it down verbatim because it's awkward to say, but Homer's drunk speak of, what's a great guy like you want to marry a guy like Selma?
It's like, what the heck? Oh my god. And then when we finally have the wedding, they say Selma's entire name and Terwilliger is in there.
Yeah.
Which is Sideshow Bob's last name. Why would she keep that? He tried to kill her. Oh my god. So finally they're married and he says, speak now or forever hold your peace. And we get that classic moment.
Homer's head.
Zooms in on Homer. Da, 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 hey. Da, 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 da.
That's his moment to fix things.
Oh my god. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Homer's brain is my favorite character in The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's a very separate and unique character.
Yep. Oh man. Which that song is still a banger. I listen to that song on the regular because it's fantastic.
It is.
It is. The scene where Homer eats the non-candy bride and groom.
Yes.
It causes me physical pain.
You could feel it scratching down your throat.
Like it's the animation. They actually animate it going down his throat. Like you can kind of see it, like the outline of it going down his throat. And the sound that they did for it.
Yeah, it's like a scratching, tearing sound.
Oh, man. Why, Homer? Homer drops this entire secret casually to Marge right before bed. He's just kind of just, oh, yeah, you know, it's because he doesn't really love her. Okay, good night. And then the whole, close your eyes, Marge, I'm trying to sleep. Does that make it canon that their eyes just light up?
Their eyes glow in the dark.
Like, that's not an animation thing. That's really happening there.
Well, that's how all cartoons work.
Oh,
so
yeah. Your eyes are open. They're automatically emitting beams of light. Troy is told that he could be a sidekick to McBain if he keeps this going. And then we go to Marge and Patty having an intervention with Selma.
Yes, which she ends up thinking it's just because they're all jealous.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of a typical, kind of a typical reaction here. It's kind of surprising, too, that there's not really a lot of in-between here. Right after that, Selma goes and confronts Troy right away.
Yeah.
And Troy admits it right away. Because most sort of, if you're trying to build character drama, you want to kind of stretch that out a little bit. But it's also kind of refreshing, too, that it's not sort of a he said, she said kind of thing. They just resolve that.
Yeah.
And the problem sort of evolves. And we get one of my favorite lines, which when we were looking, we always sit quietly and look over our notes before we start the podcast. I actually laughed out loud rereading this line because I love it so much. So Selma goes, "Do you love me?" And Troy goes, "Sure I do, but like how I love Fresca. Isn't that enough?"
And it's one that we have some of those lines that we both have in our notes, and we just start laughing.
It's perfect. I love it. And Troy has kind of a weird positive cynicism here that wins Selma over, where he pretty much says, we're not going to love each other, but you have fun with me. We have fun together. it helps me, it helps you. Why don't we just continue with this?
Well, to his credit, he's not trying to fool her.
Mhm.
I mean, he probably could have disclosed this before the wedding, but
Yeah.
at this point, he's saying, this is what it is. You
Yeah.
can take it or leave it, and
Yeah.
you can have the benefits of it, but this is what you're not going to have.
And I think that's a pretty cool nuance to this character, because they could have made him like a full-on a-hole and have him just be a complete jerk about this, or they could have had him really trying to make this work, really trying to have a good relationship. But it's a really sort of nuanced middle area that he's in,
Yeah.
where he cares for her, but he doesn't really love her, but he's upfront about it, which is really interesting.
And then it comes down to his agent saying that they should have a baby.
Yeah, which I found odd. I feel like that was, I don't know, I feel like from a writing perspective, that was them trying to force a problem out of it.
Yeah, because then that leads to the whole conflict that ultimately leads to the end of everything.
Yeah. And it happens, this whole ending happens kind of quickly.
Yeah.
We'll get more to that when we get further towards the end, but I dislike the end of this episode a lot more than I like the first 3 quarters of it. I really like the first 3 quarters of it, and then the last quarter, I don't know if it really sticks the landing, because we have then Troy asking Selma about having a baby, and she seems a bit unsure about it, but she's also not really against it. And this whole tiger sequence where he's doing the rawr thing.
Well, even like I have a hard time believing how clueless he is on
Yeah.
like when he says, "Baby, hey, what do I do?" And his agent says, "I'll send you a pamphlet." Like, you should know.
And we'll get to this in the Troy highlight episode. He did the Mr. and Mrs. Fuzzy Bunny video. He should know this.
Oh, that's
he
true.
did a sex education video. When we get to this point where Selma just says she can't do it, and she said, it's okay if it's just the 2 of us, but if we have a baby, then, even if we don't love each other, it's not going to work out, sort of thing.
Well, and she says it's not right to bring a baby into, I can't remember exactly, like a loveless relationship.
Yeah.
Which that's big of her to say, too, because she could be
yeah.
living the celebrity life.
Yeah, exactly. And her sort of conclusion to him, which honestly, it got me a little bit in the feels, not a whole lot, but a little bit. "I'm sorry, Troy. I'll always remember you, but not from your films."
Oh.
That's kind of a sweet, amicable breakup sort of thing. And then it just ends.
Yeah, she walks away with Jub Jub.
Which I don't know exactly what I would want them to show afterward, but they do show a little bit in the credits, which is a little weird too. It seems super abrupt to me.
Well, I do want to see him in his upcoming role in the Contrabulous Fabtraption of Professor Horatio Fluffernagle.
I love that name so much.
I practiced it several times. And
I
still
bet you
couldn't.
did. I bet you did. Oh my God. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings. I don't think this is one of my... It's weird because I don't think this is one of my favorite episodes, but it's got some of my favorite moments.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and we've talked about it too, where we do Simpsons quotes back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But then, if you ask us what episode is that from or what's the context,
We don't always know.
Yeah,
Because
we
some
just-
of these quotes just sort of float in our heads.
yeah, I've up until researching this, I couldn't have told you which episode the Dr. Zaius scene was from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird one. And it's weird, too, because Troy is one of my favorite characters. So you would think his highlight episode would be one of my favorites. But I think what I love about him is that he is so kind of disconnected from everything.
Yeah.
And he is sort of a caricature of this commercialization sort of thing, that he's always trying to sell something and he's always from something. Everything is a different way to sort of piggyback off of something else he's done.
He's even trying to sell the marriage.
Exactly. I feel like his characterization in this episode is fantastic. They just maybe didn't have enough time for it. I'm almost wondering, regardless of the level of conflict in this episode being relatively low, I would have liked this to be a 2-parter.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe have them get married, kind of introduce the rockiness, the oddities,
Yeah.
let it ride, kind of have it in the background for a few episodes, and then later in the season, Because I feel like they get married and then they go their separate ways like a day later.
They were trying too hard to fit this back into the status quo.
Yeah.
And it could have used more time, which is, it's weird because you think two-parter, oh, you gotta have Who Shot Mr. Burns or something really epic, but I feel like this could have really done with a two-parter.
Yeah, not necessarily two parters, but the stories in two separate segments.
Yeah, at
that
least
they bridge together.
elongated a little bit. But I do really love his characterization here. I think it's nuanced. It's not just one thing or the other. He's not a complete jerk. He's not a complete nice guy. He's something really unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we will get into all of his characterization a bit more in our next episode, which will be released in 1 week, which will be the Troy McClure highlight episode.
Which I'm looking forward to recording that.
Immediately after this. We record these two at a time, so we're doing that right after. And yeah, I it's weird because I don't know what else to say about this one other than it's in a really weird place in my Simpsons area of interest.
But it's not one you can just brush under the rug. It's got some important elements.
Exactly. It's got some great scenes. It's got one of my favorite characters, but it also, as a standalone story, I have some issues with it. So, yeah. So it was A Fish Called Selma, if you want to check that one out. And I can't really give you an episode to watch next time because we're doing the Troy McClure special. So it'll be our first episode that isn't just based on one episode. We're going to start highlighting characters. So if you do want to watch anything before that one, I would say go on YouTube and look up some of his PSAs.
Troy McClure compilation.
Yep, a Troy McClure compilation. A Troy McClure compilation. Look up some of those, the DNA one, the Meat Council one. Oh, there's some great ones.
They're all good.
Too. Yep. All right, so until then, bye everybody.